The scent of baking apple pie and simmering pot roast filled every corner of my home. It was a familiar, comforting aroma that had been a part of my life for over 40 years, a fragrance of warmth and welcome that I had meticulously cultivated. My hands, calloused from a lifetime of gardening and tending to a family, worked with a familiar rhythm as I arranged the place settings on my large oak dining table. I had polished the wood until it shone, a testament to decades of shared meals and laughter. Today, however, felt different. My heart was not just filled with the usual domestic contentment, it was brimming with an almost childish excitement, a profound sense of purpose. My son, Alex, his wife, Sarah, and their two wonderful children, Lily and Ethan, were moving in. For the foreseeable future, my house would be their home. Alex had called me 3 weeks ago with the news. His voice, usually so confident and measured, had a hint of frustration as he explained the situation. The construction on their new dream home had been delayed again. The initial 2-month setback had now stretched into an indefinite period. He sounded defeated, and my maternal instinct had immediately taken over. "Do not worry for a single moment, my dear," I had told him, my voice as steady as I could make it. "You have a home right here for as long as you need it." The relief in his voice was palpable, and I had hung up feeling like I was doing the most important thing a mother could do, providing a safe haven for her child. For the past 3 weeks, my life had been a whirlwind of preparation. I had spent countless hours cleaning, organizing, and decluttering. The guest bedroom, which had become my personal library and sanctuary over the years, was transformed. I packed away my books, carefully wrapping them in old newspapers and placing them in boxes I had labeled with meticulous care. I rearranged the furniture, a beautiful antique set that had belonged to my own mother, to make space for a crib and a child's dresser. I even went so far as to buy a new, plush rug for the floor, a soft, inviting expanse for Lily and Ethan to play on. My home, this house that I had built with my late husband, George, had always been my castle, my sanctuary. Now it was a grand hotel, a beacon of safety for my family. I was in the midst of setting out the cutlery when I heard the familiar rumble of Alex's large truck pulling into the driveway. My heart fluttered in my chest. I rushed to the front door, pulling it open with an excited flourish. There they were, the 4 of them, a tableau of modern family life, framed by the late afternoon sun. Sarah was standing next to Alex, her perfect blonde hair neatly pulled back in a ponytail, her hands on her hips as she surveyed my home. Alex had a thoughtful, almost businesslike expression as he looked at the facade. Lily, my sweet granddaughter, a girl of 9 with my own dark hair and George's eyes, was clutching a small teddy bear, while her younger brother, Ethan, was bouncing on the balls of his feet, filled with an almost boundless energy. "Mom," Alex said, his voice a low rumble, and he walked up to me and embraced me with a single, firm arm. It was a gesture of a man who is busy, a man with places to be. It was not the long, lingering hug I had hoped for, but I did not let it sour my mood. "Welcome home," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It is good to be here, Mom," he replied, but his eyes were already scanning the interior of the house, noting the changes I had made, and I felt a small, prickling sensation of unease. The next few hours were a dizzying blur of unloading boxes and suitcases. I tried to help, to carry small things, but Alex would wave me off with a patronizing chuckle. "Mom, please. This is too heavy for you. Go put your feet up." My feet did not feel tired, and I wanted to be involved, but his tone left no room for negotiation. Sarah, for her part, did not seem to be interested in small talk. Her focus was entirely on directing Alex and the movers, her voice a sharp, clipped command. "That one goes in the bedroom. Be careful with that corner." "No, the large box goes against the wall." It was as if I were a mere spectator in my own home. I decided to make myself useful by bringing out a tray of freshly baked cookies and a pitcher of cold lemonade. The children, bless their hearts, were the only ones who seemed truly happy to be there. They devoured the cookies with a ferocious delight, and their unadulterated joy momentarily lifted my spirits. That evening, as we sat down to dinner, the conversation was dominated by Alex and Sarah's plans for their new home. They spoke in a language of blueprints, contractors, and design choices that I could not comprehend. I listened, nodding along, trying to show my interest. "We are going with an open floor plan," Sarah said, her eyes gleaming with a kind of predatory excitement. "It will feel so much more modern. This house, no offense, Mom, feels a little cluttered." The words landed on me like a physical blow. Cluttered. My home. The place filled with memories, with treasures collected over a lifetime. It was not cluttered. It was lived in. I felt my face flush, but I forced a small smile. "I have always enjoyed a more cozy feeling," I replied, my voice a little too quiet. "Cozy is a nice word for it," Alex chuckled, and a cold shiver ran down my spine. That night, as I lay in my own bed, in my own room, I could not sleep. I heard the muffled voices of Alex and Sarah from their bedroom, and their hushed words felt like they were creeping into the very foundation of my home. I felt an inexplicable dread. I had given them my home, my space, my sanctuary. I had done it out of love, out of a profound and unshakable desire to help. But in return, I was being given back a sense of displacement, of being a guest in my own life. The next morning, the sense of displacement grew even stronger. I woke up to the sound of Sarah's voice giving instructions. No, that chair simply will not work there. It obstructs the flow." I walked out of my room to find my beloved armchair, the one that George had given me on our 30th anniversary, being moved from its familiar corner next to the fireplace. "Sarah, please," I said, my voice strained. "That chair has been there for years." Sarah barely looked at me. "Mom, we are making a few adjustments. This is not the layout we are used to." Her tone was dismissive, as if my opinion was an inconvenience to be brushed aside. Over the next few days, my home was transformed without my consent. My antique rug was rolled up and replaced with a cheap, store-bought runner that was easier to clean. My cherished collection of porcelain teacups was packed away in a box, a small piece of paper taped to it with Sarah's handwriting, fragile, for storage. The paintings that I had hung with so much care were taken down and replaced with modern, abstract prints that clashed with the very essence of my home. I felt as if I were watching a play, a performance in which I had no role, no lines to speak. I tried to voice my concerns to Alex, to tell him how much this was hurting me. He listened with a distracted look in his eyes, his phone buzzing with notifications. "Mom, it is just furniture," he said, his tone one of extreme impatience. "We are only here for a little while. This is about making a comfortable living space for all of us." "But it is my living space," I replied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "And now it is ours, for a while," he said, and the finality of his statement left me breathless. I felt an invisible weight settle on my shoulders, a crushing feeling of being a burden in my own home. I began to spend more time in my room, the one space they had not yet invaded, and I felt the walls close in around me. I would sit for hours, staring at the boxes of my books, the silent witnesses to my life. I had given so much, had opened my heart and my home, and in return, I was being made to feel as if I were in the way, a relic from a time that no longer mattered. The quiet dignity of my life was being dismantled piece by piece, and I did not know how to stop it. The scent of pot roast and apple pie had been replaced by the sterile smell of new paint and unfamiliar furniture. My sanctuary had become a place of silent torment, and I was just beginning to realize the full extent of my foolish, loving mistake. The first few weeks were a painful lesson in quiet submission. My house, once a sanctuary of my memories and comfort, was now a hollow echo of its former self. Sarah, with her boundless energy and unyielding sense of right, continued her crusade to modernize the space. Every morning, I would wake up to the sound of furniture being rearranged, the muffled whispers of her and Alex, and a new, jarring change to my environment. My cherished photographs, framed memories of my life with George and the children, were taken down from the walls and replaced with stark, lifeless art. When I asked about them, Sarah simply said they were cluttering the aesthetic. She did not offer to hang them elsewhere. She simply packed them away in another box, a silent, painful act of erasure. The children, Lily and Ethan, were caught in the middle. They were not malicious, but they were adapting to the new reality. Lily, once so quick to run to me for a hug, now seemed more reserved. Sarah and Alex had enrolled them in a new, exclusive private school, and their schedules were packed with after-school activities. I saw them in brief, fleeting moments, a quick kiss on the cheek before a hurried departure, a tired, distracted wave after returning home late. I missed their presence, the joy they brought to my home, and the way they would sit with me as I read them stories from my favorite books. My role as grandmother seemed to be diminishing into that of a silent observer, a background figure in their lives. One evening, I overheard Sarah talking on the phone with her sister. Her voice was low, but in the quiet of my own home, it carried. Honestly, she is a lovely woman, of course, but a bit set in her ways. We are just trying to make the space work for us. The new house is still a few months out, so we have to make do. It is all so exhausting, trying to explain every little thing to her. She does not seem to understand that it is for the best. Her words felt like sharp daggers piercing my heart. She was talking about me as if I were a difficult child, an inconvenience. I retreated to my room, the walls feeling more like a prison than a sanctuary. The financial strain began to mount as well. Alex had initially offered to contribute to the household expenses, but his contributions were vague and inconsistent. Then, one day, he approached me with a somber expression. "Mom," he said, sitting on the new, uncomfortable sofa that had replaced my comfortable chair. "I am sorry to do this, but with the construction delays, we are running a bit tight on funds. The contractor is demanding more money, and we have to pay the new school tuition. Would you mind helping us out for a little while? Just until things are stable." The number he mentioned was substantial, nearly half of my savings. My mind reeled. These were the savings that I had worked my entire life to accumulate, the money for my retirement, for a comfortable and dignified old age. But he was my son. He was in trouble. I could not, in good conscience, refuse him. So, with a heavy heart, I transferred the money to his account, telling myself that it was a temporary measure, a small sacrifice for my family. The temporary measure became a pattern. A few weeks later, Sarah approached me, a look of manufactured distress on her face. "Mom, the new car has broken down again, and the repair costs are astronomical. We need to buy a new one, but we are just short. It is so important for Alex to have a reliable car for work." Her eyes, so devoid of warmth, were fixed on me, and I felt the familiar weight of obligation. I gave them more money, a significant portion of what was left. My bank account, once a source of comfort and security, was dwindling. I felt an increasing sense of panic, a cold knot forming in the pit of my stomach. My health began to suffer. I had always been an active woman, full of life, but the stress and the constant tension were taking their toll. My appetite was gone, and I would spend nights staring at the ceiling, my mind a whirlwind of anxiety and regret. I was losing not only my home, but also my sense of self. I was no longer a person with my own life. I was an ATM, a free place to live, a burden to be tolerated. One afternoon, I decided I had had enough. I walked into the living room, my hands shaking, and saw Sarah and Alex going through old photo albums, my photo albums, which she had taken from my room. "What are you doing with those?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Oh, just looking," Sarah said, a casual shrug of her shoulders. "It is so interesting to see what the house looked like back then. Honestly, Mom, this wallpaper was so loud. We are thinking of getting rid of it all and painting the entire house white." The wallpaper was not just wallpaper. It was a pattern that George and I had picked out together, a small, intricate design that had been a part of my life for as long as I could remember. My rage, a quiet, simmering thing until then, finally boiled over. "This is my home," I said, my voice trembling with the effort to remain calm. "These are my memories. You cannot simply come in here and change everything. You cannot treat me this way." Alex looked up from the album, a cold, indifferent expression on his face. "Mom, please, do not make a scene. This is a family matter. We are all living here. We are doing what is best for everyone." His words, "a family matter," were a brutal irony. This was not a family matter. This was a hostile takeover. I felt an unbearable pain, a deep, crushing sorrow. My son, The boy I had raised with so much love was standing there, a stranger in my own home, a man who saw me only as a resource to be exploited. I looked at Sarah, her face a mask of patronizing pity, and I knew that I was alone in this fight. The betrayal was complete. My heart was broken, but something else was beginning to stir within me, a hard, unyielding seed of resolve. The days that followed the photo album incident were filled with a cold, oppressive silence. Alex and Sarah, as if to punish me for my small outburst, began to treat me with an icy detachment. They would speak to each other in hushed tones, often stopping abruptly when I entered the room. My meals were eaten alone, and my presence in the house was met with a practiced indifference. I was a ghost in my own home, an unseen, unheard entity. The sense of isolation was absolute. My mind, however, was no longer consumed by sorrow. A quiet, burning fire had been lit within me, a fire of indignation and a fierce desire for justice. I had lived a life of kindness, of generosity, and of self-sacrifice. My home, my savings, my love, I had given them all freely, expecting only a modicum of respect in return. Now, I saw the truth of it. I had been a pawn in their game, a means to an end. The shock of it all gave way to a hardened resolve. One morning, as I was sitting in the newly redecorated living room, a man I had never seen before walked into the house, carrying a thick binder under his arm. Alex greeted him with a warm handshake and a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Mom, this is Mr. Davies," Alex said, his voice unusually cheerful. "He is a real estate agent. He is just here to give us an appraisal." My heart pounded in my chest. An appraisal. The word hung in the air, a threat, a violation. An appraisal of what? I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Of the house, Mom," Alex said, his tone dismissive. "We are just exploring our options. You know, with the new house taking so long, we might as well see what the market looks like." He spoke as if I were a child, as if this was an innocent, casual conversation. But the look in Mr. Davies's eyes, the way he sized me up with a condescending glance, told me everything I needed to know. He was not there to give an appraisal, he was there to facilitate a sale. A sale of my home. My hands began to tremble. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw him out of my house, but I held my tongue. I watched as Mr. Davies walked through my rooms, a tape measure in his hand, his eyes calculating the square footage, a mercenary of their greed. He did not see my memories, he saw only numbers. When they were finished, Alex walked Mr. Davies to the door, and I heard him say, "She is completely on board. She just needs a little, gentle persuasion." His words hit me harder than any physical blow. Completely on board. He was not only stealing my home, but he was also fabricating a narrative, telling a stranger that I was an accomplice to my own demise. The rage within me became a roaring inferno. I went in my room, the one place I still felt I had ownership of, and I locked the door. I sat on my bed, staring at the wall, and for the first time in a very long time, I did not cry. I was not sad anymore. I was simply profoundly furious. The next morning, I began to act. I started with a simple search on my old laptop, the one they thought I never used. I typed in the name of Alex's company, a large construction firm. I found a list of their recent projects, and my blood ran cold as I saw it. A beautiful, brand-new house, just completed, on the outskirts of town. The address was the same as the one Alex had told me was their dream home. But the listing said it had already been sold. Not for months, not for weeks, but for weeks already. The date of sale was exactly 1 week after he had called me, asking to move in. My heart felt as if it had been encased in ice. It was not a delay. It was a lie. A calculated, deliberate lie. Alex had not been stranded. He had planned this all along. He had used the promise of a dream home to manipulate me, to convince me to open my doors and give up my savings. The betrayal was so deep, so complete, that I could barely comprehend it. They had never intended to live with me. They had intended to take my house and sell it, leaving me with nothing. My vision was blurred with unshed tears, but I did not let them fall. I opened a new browser window and typed in the name of my bank, the bank where I had kept my money for decades. I had always been so careful with my finances, so meticulous. I was about to call them when I remembered a quiet conversation I had had with my late husband, George, years ago. He had told me about a financial advisor, a man who worked for a private wealth management firm, a man he trusted implicitly with his secret, a nest egg he had built over many years. George had never told me the full details, only that he had provided for me in a way they would never see coming. He had given me a small, unassuming business card with only a name and a phone number, telling me to keep it safe. "It is just for a rainy day," he had said with a knowing smile. I opened the top drawer of my nightstand, the one that held my most treasured mementos. There it was, tucked away in an old jewelry box, a small, worn piece of cardstock. The name on the card was Arthur Vance. The number was faded, but still legible. I took a deep, shuddering breath, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and newfound resolve. I knew what I had to do. I had to fight fire with fire. I had to play their game, but I had to do it better. My mind was not consumed with thoughts of revenge, but with a simple, fierce desire for justice. I would not let them win. I would not allow them to rob me of my dignity, my home, and my last remaining sense of security. I would not be the frail old woman they saw. I would be the woman who had built this life from nothing and was prepared to fight to keep it. The storm was gathering, and they had no idea that I, not they, held the lightning in my hand. The morning was crisp and clear, a stark contrast to the brewing storm within me. I had not slept a wink, but my mind was sharper than it had been in months. The quiet, resolute woman I had become was not the same woman who had opened her home with a loving heart. She was gone, replaced by someone who knew the truth, someone who was not afraid to face the bitter reality of her situation. I had made the phone call to Arthur Vance. His voice was calm, professional, and full of a quiet confidence that immediately put me at ease. He listened patiently as I explained my situation, my voice low and controlled, and he did not offer a single interruption. "Your late husband was a very wise man, ma'am," he said when I was finished. He was a visionary. He saw a day when a woman might need a shield. He then calmly explained the structure of my late husband's trust. It was a private fund, an anonymous account that he had built over the decades without telling me the full extent of its value. It was a secret asset, a testament to his love and his foresight. It was not a simple trust, it was a carefully constructed financial fortress, a fund that could buy and sell properties without raising a single eyebrow. A portion of the funds were liquid and could be accessed with a single wire transfer. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I then asked him the most important question of all. "Can it be used to buy a house?" "It can be used to buy any number of things," he replied, and I knew then that my journey from victim to victor was already underway. The day of the big family dinner arrived, the day Alex and Sarah had chosen to discuss the sale with me. They had invited my sister, Clara, and her husband, Robert, as well as Alex's favorite cousin, Mark, and his wife. The stage was set. It was a calculated move, a public display of family unity to box me in and pressure me into signing the papers they had so conveniently prepared. I walked into the dining room, a small, knowing smile on my face. Alex and Sarah were bustling around, putting on a show of a happy family. The others were seated, their faces a mixture of expectation and, in the case of my sister, a hint of concern. "Mom, we are all here to talk about the future," Alex began, his voice dripping with condescension. "We have worked so hard to find the perfect solution for all of us. You will be so happy." He then slid a thick packet of documents across the table. "We have decided that the best thing for you is to sell this house. The market is hot, and we can get a good price. We will, of course, find you a beautiful, new apartment, something with less upkeep for you to worry about. And we will even cover the costs of the movers." Sarah chirped, a false, saccharine smile plastered on her face. I looked at them, at their smug, self-satisfied faces, and I felt a wave of icy calm wash over me. It was now or never. "That is very generous of you, dear," I said, my voice steady and clear. "But you do not need to worry about the upkeep of this house. Because I have already sold it." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Alex's jaw dropped. Sarah's smile vanished. The room became absolutely silent, save for the sound of my own heart beating. "Well, what did you say?" Alex stammered, his eyes wide with confusion. I said, "I have already sold the house," I repeated, a small, triumphant smile playing on my lips. "To a wonderful, private buyer. A very generous offer, I might add. The new owner is set to take possession in 2 weeks." "But that is impossible," Alex said, his face turning a deep shade of red. "You cannot do that without my permission. I am your son." "No, dear," I said, my voice firm. "You are not my guardian. I am a free woman, and this is my property. And, since you are here, I must also inform you that your new house, the one you so painstakingly had built, is no longer yours. You see, I also purchased it. The new title has my name on it." The look on his face was a mixture of utter disbelief and dawning horror. Sarah's face was white as a sheet, her mouth agape. "That is a lie," she shrieked. "You do not have that kind of money. We took your money." "Did you?" I said, my voice as cold as ice. "Did you take all of it? You see, the money you took was from a regular account. My husband, George, had a secret account, a trust, that I just recently found out about. The funds were substantial. It seems you only ever saw what you wanted to see, not what was really there." I looked at the faces around the table, the faces of my family. My sister and her husband were staring in stunned silence. Alex's cousin, Mark, was looking at him with an expression of pure disgust. I stood up and walked to the dining room door. "Now, if you will excuse me, I must go. I am meeting a friend. The new owners of this house have given me a generous period to pack my things." Alex, his voice a desperate whisper, said, "But Mom, where will we go? What about the children?" I turned back to him, and my eyes, so full of love and warmth before, were now 2 burning coals. "That is no longer my concern," I said. "You should have thought about that before you took my savings. You should have thought about that before you tried to steal my home. You should have thought about that before you treated me with so little respect." I turned and walked out of the dining room and out of the house. I did not look back. I did not need to. I had found my freedom. I had found my dignity. I had found my home again, but it was not the physical house. It was within me. I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor. They had wanted to make me a pauper, but they had left me with a fortune. They had wanted to make me homeless, but they had given me the keys to a new life. And as I stepped into the bright, warm sunlight, I knew that my journey had just begun. The future was mine, and I had a whole world to explore.